Chapter 10. Getting off the shit. I've gotten high at work and in clubs. I've gotten high on highways in my car. I have even gotten high in an airplane bathroom. When you're an addict, you don't care about anything but getting high. You have a one track mind. I was so caught up that I smuggled coke in various nasty cavities of my body because I could not be anywhere without being able to get high. And I didn't want to depend on making a connection wherever I traveled. I've been to Jerome Avenue in the Bronx at 3 in the morning to cop drugs on several occasions because my dealer was too busy to deliver. I've had to wait for him on a specific corner for several hours sometimes, and I would wait because I needed to get my fix. Drugs are an unpredictable business. You can't rely on a drug dealer to be where he says he's going to be on time. You can't even rely on a drug dealer to charge you what he says he's going to charge. If he feels like doubling the price, you'll pay it because you want to get high. Drug addicts are unreliable too. You can't count on a drug addict to be a good mother, a good husband, or a good worker. You can't even count on a drug addict to look out for themselves. I put myself in some very dangerous and scary situations because I wanted to get high. There's no honor in the drug game, whether you're a user or a seller. I don't know what the fuck I was doing all of those years, but I'm so glad that I'm out of it today. I'm so glad I left drugs and came back to life relatively unscathed. I don't understand how I managed to be a reliable employee when I was so deeply involved in the drugs, and the worst kind of drug at that, cocaine. Cocaine is the devil, and I beat back that devil with a whole lot of help. I didn't go I didn't go to rehab, nor did I involve a whole bunch of people in my recovery. I wouldn't have gotten off so quickly if I had involved a bunch of people in my quitting. The babying and hand holding would have been a stumbling block and given me an easy out. I didn't have any easy outs. I was given a unique opportunity to start over in my personal life. I had a chance to be happy, to be in love, to be a wife, to be a mother, to be everything that I saw for myself as a little girl in Wayside, rocking back and forth, plotting my future. This was it. I chose life. When I met Kevin, I was heavily sniffing and smoking cocaine. But after our first date, everything seemed to change. I don't even think to this day that he realizes how much he's changed my life. My family doesn't even realize it. You see, the picture would be that the guy in the suit would change all that, not the thug. But you know what it was? I met Kevin and I realized I was falling for him and that he had a big mouth. People find out shortly after getting to know me how important my parents and their opinion are to me. So him threatening to tell my parents would have been a big thing. And Kevin's the type of guy who would have had no problem telling my folks. But being around Kevin also made me not want to be around cocaine. He filled in whatever blank cocaine was filling. After my divorce, I realized I needed someone to roll with me. I didn't need to deal with another bullshit motherfucker who had to grind all day for a week to make what I'm making 2 hours at an appearance. Kevin was in the grind with me. He had his own businesses. He threw parties for a living. He knew about the club scenes and that my appearances were not about fucking, picking up niggas and getting numbers. He knew that 4 in the morning arrivals home and even being drunk in the back of a limo was not about being sexually promiscuous. He knew quickly that I was making it hot on the radio, and yes, a large part of me is that sharp-tongued chick that you hear. But he was beginning to know that was only part of my hustle. He was finding that I knew how to turn that off and be warm and pink. Sidebar. And if more high-powered women knew that, perhaps more high-powered women would have men. You see, these women with the big fucking mouths in the boardrooms and at work bringing that home and start saying dumb shit to their man like, I make the fucking money in this, and this is my fucking house, nigga. See, that kind of bullshit might get you tough girl points, but you're never going to settle down with a real man. If you settle down, you're going to be stuck with a man who will quickly get bored with, like the string of boyfriends that I had in the past who I was able to run over. I would say all kinds of shit to them and get away with it. Like, what are you looking in my eyes for? Knowing I was all fucked up. I was out last night grinding until 4 in the morning to make money and you're just jealous. In the meantime, I might have just come out of the bathroom. And by the way, do I have anything under my nose? I would make sure that the man I dated never indulged so that A, they wouldn't see the signs, and B, if one of us was going to have a habit, it was going to be me because I had the money to support it and I was getting it cheap. I really had the money for this and to pay my bills and buy whatever I wanted. Kevin made me change my cell phone. You can't be queen of the radio with this outdated thing, he said, even though I hardly ever used it. He was the type of person who I felt comfortable with from day one. And once he was in, I wanted to make sure that he saw that what he saw and what I was as pure as he was. I'm not saying that Kevin was an angel, but he was real and honest with me. He was raw. Kevin sideswiped me. He saved me from doing coke the very day we met. For that one night, he took my attention away from something that was a near obsession for me for a very long time. I was getting down at least 4 or 5 days a week. The other days I was recuperating. The other days were probably because I had business to attend to, which involved looking people in the face, and my own cocaine behavior would not have been palatable. My friends, who never knew about my habit because I kept it a secret, could not have stopped me if they knew. To them, I was Wendy from the radio, their star friend. They couldn't care less that I was a cokehead. And if any of them had mentioned it and tried to say something to me, I probably would have cut them off. And they probably knew that too. So I don't blame them for not saying something. Coworkers would rather talk about me behind my back than to see me recover from my addiction. I know they were talking because I could be in the green room waiting to do my shift wildly high, sweating like it was 110 degrees, pretending to read a magazine, but really using it to fan myself. And one by one, coworkers would come in, one sending in the next, to see the spectacle. They wanted to observe Wendy sweating, fanning herself, and oh, wait a minute, isn't that a big brick under her nose? Funny thing is that I work with many of the same people today. But you know what? I cured myself. I solved my problems. And now I walk through there with a big smirk. No, I don't blame them for talking about me behind my back. Hell, if it was somebody else, I might have been talking too. That was who and what I was then. And I know now that I wasn't hiding anything from Kevin. He knew. He never caught me in the act. But my behavior was different when I was high. Cocaine is not the sleeping drug. He would be sleeping. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm up. Not just up, but wired, wide awake. I'd be on the couch at 3 o'clock, wide awake. 4 o'clock in the morning, still awake. 5 o'clock, and still be sitting up with my jeans and panties on, paranoid about something and too lazy to take off my jeans and panties. The all night binges or all weekend binges stopped with Kevin around. I couldn't get high as often or as much as I had before spending my time with him. I had to resort to trying to sneak and use it around his schedule. When he would leave, I would sit down to no less than 2 grams at a pop. Because I would have to finish the entire package by the time he arrived, I could easily do 3 or 4 grams by myself in one sitting. I found the love of my life, and I didn't want him to ever see that side of me. I even stopped cooking coke and returned to strictly snorting because how would I explain the bent up, burnt spoons and the smell to my man? Before Kevin, I cooked more than I sniffed. Cooking coke seemed to me to be a much cleaner high, but I liked it. I liked it all. It's like when you sit down to a meal, you have steak and potatoes. Now you can have the steak rare, well done on medium. You can have that potato baked, mashed, scalloped. You get the picture. It was the same way with Coke for me. I liked it a variety of ways. Cooked, sniffed, in a cigarette or a blunt. The latter two seemed like a waste to me. I like my high too much to waste it in a cigarette or blunt. The one thing I never did with it was shoot it up. I kept my cocaine in a plastic green container on my kitchen counter before Kevin, but I had to resort to hiding it when he moved in. I would keep a package in my bathrobe. In hindsight, I guess I was begging to be discovered. I mean, all he had to do was put his hands in my pocket and there it was. He never cornered me. He never busted me out. Even when I was acting strange from being high, Kevin never screamed at me or lectured me. He did something, the only thing actually that could stop to get me to stop. He killed me with kindness. Had Kevin confronted me, I would have had a comeback. Had he lectured me, I would have turned a deaf ear. But to kill me with kindness, well, there was no defense for that. There are a few artists who have killed me with kindness after I've said something about them on the air, and believe it or not, they get a free pass from me. I tend to not talk about the ones who have killed me with kindness. Now, if there is a really juicy story, everyone is fair game. But there are some who simply get a free pass. People hear me on the radio and they assume if they come at me and if they threaten me and call me a bitch or worse, that I will stop. But that only makes me come harder. I love that. I love the confrontation. Note, rappers don't read, so nobody tell them what I'm saying, okay? Because I still want to have something to talk about. Somehow Kevin knew this about me. I'd be in the middle of being fucked up. He would say, "What's the matter with you, yo?" He would get disgusted with me sitting there all night in the same clothes and still be there at 7 in the morning. But he would leave it at that. He wasn't being confrontational, which was so out of character for him. I mean, this was a man who was confrontational by nature. He's not the type to shut up about shit. Kevin has a nasty temper and yells and screams when he's angry and frustrated. We've had fights about other things, but about this, he was silent. I spent a lot of my sober time thinking about this and being upset with myself for betraying him. I've known Kevin almost 10 years, and my drug abuse was the only issue between us that he has let ride. Thinking back, that's how I knew he loved me as much as I loved him from the jump. He didn't know what to do. He was at a loss. He wasn't trying to use me, he was stumped. So he kept quiet. There came a point, though, when I stopped doing cocaine. I saw that it was really hurting him. We never discussed it, but I was smart enough to know that my habit was hurting him, and it became too much to try to pretend to keep the addiction from him. I certainly wasn't willing to say out loud that I was an addict. He didn't deserve that kind of woman, so I stopped being one. Once I met Kevin, my priorities changed. The energy I put into getting high was now put into being with him and making this thing we were becoming grow. I didn't stop cold turkey. I didn't go through rehab. I didn't find Jesus. I just weaned off the stuff the way a baby gets weaned off the tit. At no particular point did I think about what I was doing to my body, nor did I ever think about my own health and well being. But now, all of a sudden, I have this man in my life who I want to give my best to, and there was simply no room for us and the white lady. And after the trial and all the other drama with Hot 97, there just didn't seem to be any more room for cocaine. When we moved to Philly, I left my habit and all the other shit right there in New York. I couldn't see trying to find a coke connection in Philly, and I definitely wasn't traveling up and down the highway to New York. They say once an addict, always an addict. I'll accept that title. I have no problem with that. If it wasn't for my addiction, I would not be the fabulous woman I am today. I know, however, that inside I am not an addict. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am a radio personality. I am Queen of New York. If you want to throw addict in there too, go right on ahead. Because I know there is nothing that could turn me into that person again. Nothing. Ever.